Adeline Farrell था ना वो औरत उसने पकड़ ली थी. The young woman had studied history and geography at Toulouse University and the Sorbonne, Paris. She had married her college sweetheart Henry, and the son was born shortly after the outbreak of World War II. Madeleine had joined the Maquis resistance during the war, and her underground activities had brought her into contact with French and Belgian Jews. Among them, the Antwerp group. At the war's end, she even initiated a joint import export ventures with some of them. In 1951, she divorced Henry after falling in love with a young rabbi in the small Alsatian town. एक Alsatian town में उसने वो किया. The rabbi, a fervent Zionist, wanted to immigrate to Israel, and the two lovers decided to marry there. Her conversion to Judaism, therefore, was not so much for the love of the religion itself as for love for one of its adherents. मतलब मैदलिन को कोई ज्यू से प्यार हो गया था, उसने कहा कि मैं जो हूँ अब इजराइल चली जाऊंगा, मैं ज्यूश बनाना. The recently converted Ruth Penn David tied a scarf over her blonde hair, changed her elegant clothes for the shapeless vestments of Orthodox Jews, and followed her fiancé to the Holy Land. But in the Israel, the affair turned sour. The rabbi left her, and she remained alone, depressed and frustrated. एक को छोड़ा दूसरे ने भी छोड़ दिया. तो Hannah sour. The rabbi left her, and she remained. Her personal crisis apparently motivated her to approach the most extremist circles in Jerusalem and the leader, Rabbi Maizesh. और उसने फिर बगावत की, रबाई मैसेज को कांटेक्ट किया. She gained a lot of respect in the religious circles after using a French passport to cross into the Jordanian sector of Jerusalem and pray at the Wailing Wall. बड़ी हिम्मत थी. उसने अपना फ्रेंच पासपोर्ट यूज़ किया और जॉर्डेनियन सेक्टर में जाकर के वेलिंग वॉल पे जाके प्रे किया. तो इजरायली तो वो जो थे एकदम ही उन्होंने कहा वाह ये तो बड़ी हिम्मत वाली औरत है. ठीक है ना. अच्छा चलो. In the early 50s, Ruth returned to France and started traveling extensively again. The Mossad agents discovered that she often stayed in Aix-les-Bains or in a religious women's institution close to Paris. But she had no permanent address. Okay. The immigration authorities informed Israel's that in the last few years, Ruth had visited Israel twice. वो दो बार इजराइल गई थी. The second time on June 21st, 1960, she had left Israel with a little girl who was recorded in her passport as her daughter. तो दूसरी बार जब गई तो उसने एक अपनी लड़की लेके गई जो कि उसका डॉटर थी. She departed on an Alitalia flight and her final destination was Zurich. But who was the small girl? Ben David had no daughter. Israel felt that he was on the right track. Find her, he said to Yaakov Karos. तो उसने कहा कि इस पता लगाओ वो लड़की कौन थी. वो लड़की हो सकता है वो लड़का ही हो. Armed with a detailed description of the woman, Karos and another agent set out for Aix-les-Bains. But as they drove into the small town, they saw something amazing. Ruth and David, or in this case Madeleine Farrell, elegantly dressed, stood by the road hitchhiking. They were startled. Elegant, refined French women trying to thumb a ride on the roads of France was not a common sight, to say the least. The driver immediately made a U-turn and darted towards the lady, but another car stopped ahead of him and departed with her. The agents returned from Aix-les-Bains empty-handed. But from another source they learned that Ruth Penn David kept close ties with Joseph Dom, a rich London jewel merchant. तो रुथ बेन डेविड जो थी वो एक लंदन का जो डायमंड मर्चेंट था, ज्वेल मर्चेंट था, जोसेफ डॉम के साथ काफ़ी थे. Which was inappropriate for a Hasidic man.
What?
Hasidic man. जो थी एक उसके साथ ऑटोमोबाइल में गए जो कि सही नहीं मानते जूस कि किसी औरत के साथ अकेले जाओ. ये तो बढ़िया लोग लग रहे हैं हसीदिक. Israel knew of Dom and he was a staunch enemy of the state of Israel. तो इजराइल को पता था ये डॉम जो था ये स्टेट ऑफ इजराइल का दुश्मन था. He belonged to the Satmar Hasidic sect, was a cold confidant of the Satmar Rabbi in New York and knew the major Satmar leaders in various communities in Europe. If the Satmar Rabbi in New York is the Pope, one expect told Ezra, then Domp is his Archbishop. Ezra realized that all the roads led to London. Here lived the two sons of old Starkish. Here was based an active community of the Satmar sect led by Dom. Here he was seen with Ruth Pen David, who might have smuggled yossele out of Israel. Israel had no more doubts. इज़राइल के कोई और डाउट्स नहीं थे, लड़की यहीं पे है, ठीक है ना? अच्छा, इज़राइल के कोई डाउट्स नहीं था. It had to be Satmar Hasidim in Israel and Europe who had orchestrated the kidnapping of the child. तो ये जो सतमार हाजिदिम थे, इन्होंने इस बच्चे को किडनैप कराया था. Dom had been in charge of the operation. Ruth Ben David had been instrumental in the abduction because of her talents, her experience, and her French passport. And she might know where the child was hidden. His suspicions were confirmed by a Shabak agent who intercepted several letters Ruth Pen David had written to her son. Ruth Pen David अपने लड़के को बहुत सारे letters लिखे थे, तो एक वो था. They contained some veiled hints about Yossele Schumacher. उसमें कुछ एक hints थे Yossele Schumacher के बारे में. Yet Isaiah needed more information. He decided to infiltrate the Satmar Hasidim. Satmar Hasidim में घुसे. His men in London identified a mohel, a rabbi who specialized in the circumcision of newborn Jewish boys, named Friar, not his real name. He was a chatterbox, a man with a taste of life's pleasures under the cloak of righteousness. मतलब वो मस्त आदमी था, मतलब Jewish वो भी था और ऐश करता था, उस ऐसे रबाई को पकड़ा. And last but not least, a man who was close to the dome and claimed he knew where yossele was. उसको पता था, वो कह रहा था कि मुझे पता है कि yossele कहाँ है. Asia launched a complicated operation intended to bring Friar to Paris. One of his men, posing as a Moroccan prince, came secretly to Friar and told him that he had fallen in love with a Jewish girl. They had married in secret and kept the Jewish faith at home in Morocco. Now his wife had given birth to a baby boy and he wanted him circumcised, but he couldn't do it in Morocco. वो मोरक्को में नहीं कर सकते थे और मतलब बच्चे वाइफ का बच्चा हो गया था, तो ऐसे था. His family would murder him only if they knew. His wife and child were in Paris. Wife और बच्चा जो थे Paris में थे. Would Rabbi Friar come to circumcise the baby? He would be handsomely rewarded. ठीक है. Friar readily agreed. Friar का कहा अरे वाह बिल्कुल circumcise करेंगे. And a few days later arrived in the Paris. The moment he stepped into the apartment of the Moroccan prince, he was apprehended by mossad agents. Friar जैसे ही घुसे, उनको mossad के agents से पकड़ लिया. They escorted him to a bare room where he was interrogated for hours by Victor Cohen, the head of the Shabak investigation department. The mohel was scared to death, offered no resistance, and was ready to talk. मोहेल जो था ना, वो जो रेबाई था ना जिसको किडनैप किया था, वो एकदम डर गया था. मतलब वो था, उसको इन्होंने पकड़ा और ये था. But when asked about yossele, he raised his hand. I'm dreadfully sorry, he said, but I don't know a thing. yossele उसको पता नहीं था. And it turned out indeed that Frere knew nothing about the abducted child, and all his braggadocio was just intended to impress his friends. Once again, Izer's efforts fell to a wall. Surprisingly, another team of his men had struck gold. With the help of French Secret Service, that succeeded in intercepting several letters sent to Madeleine Farrell, and in one of them they found the opportunity they were looking for. Madame Farrell को खूब सारे letters आए थे, उनमें से एक letter में पता लगा था. It was a reply to a newspaper ad offering for sale her country house in Orleans, a lovely city in the Garden of France, the Loire Valley. They dispatched a letter to the post office box given in the advertisement and offered Farrell more than she was asking for house. They claimed they were Austrian businessmen looking for a location for their vacations. Madame Farrell answered, giving the address of her house. Soon after, they wrote to her again, saying that visit didn't suited their needs. मैंने कहा ठीक है, हमें जो था आपका घर पसंद है. मैडम फरेल कुछ बेचना चाह रही थी, तो उनको पसंद आया. They fixed an appointment for closing the deal on June 21, 1962 in the lobby of a big hotel in Paris. उन्होंने कहा ठीक है, एक पेरिस के होटल में हम आप मैडम शुरेल से मिलेंगे और लॉबी में उसमें उसको करेंगे. A few days before the appointment, Israel's men arrived in Paris one by one and were quickly absorbed in feverish activity. They rented cars and safe houses in Paris and its suburbs and established escape routes, prepared documents and equipment and brought from Israel experts in surveillance and interrogation. अरे बाप रे, इजरायली लोग जो थे वो इस तरीके से वो लेके आए थे. Israel also decided the best means to make Ruth Ben David reveal her secrets was through her son. Ariel studied in a yeshiva in Israel and apparently knew a lot about Yosel. Israel decided to arrest him simultaneously with his mother's abduction in France. Ariel was orthodox but less fanatical than his mother. Israel established a system of communication that would enable the Mossad agents to synchronize the question of Ruth with that of her son in Israel. So they could use the answer of the son for questioning her mother. On the morning of June 21, a tall, elegant, strikingly beautiful woman walked into the hotel lobby. This was Madeleine Farrell. The charming French woman introduced herself to two Austrians who were waiting for her. One of them was Herr Furber, the other Herr Schmidt. She spoke excellent English and also had a good command of the German. She never expected the identity of the two buyers. तो कल पढ़ेंगे, माँ कल पढ़ते हैं.
ठीक है. अब तो हमारे मसल नीचे
बताओ
लग रहा है.
इजरायली कितना